what lawyers, we often just skip the teaming exercise. Teaming exercises work. You take first 15 minutes of the first day of a project that you've been put on with a team and decide together your why. Because if you're not all on the same why, you're not going to get where you need to go. And not everyone's going to be signing in and be accountable, and you won't get results.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Answering Legal Everything Except the Law podcast. I am your host, as always, Nick Worker. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. Our guest today is Michele DeStefano. Michele is the founder of LawWithoutWalls, an organization dedicated to changing how lawyers and business professionals partner to solve problems. She's also taught at some of the country's top law schools, has written multiple books about growing the intersection between law, business, and legal innovation. Michele, welcome to the show. Your name is not Mary.
My name is not Mary.
I
Nick,
didn't mess
thanks
it up.
for having me.
I didn't mess up her name before that. That's an inside joke that none of you are going to get. So, Michele, can you please give me and the audience some additional background on who you are and your areas of expertise and sort of how you got to where you are?
So after graduating from college, I went into advertising, and I worked for 4 years at an advertising agency called Leo Burnett in Chicago. I mean, they're everywhere, but their home base was Chicago. And then after that, ironically, I thought I wanted to go client side, and I went and worked in the marketing department of Levi Strauss & Company. And what I found out very quickly at the age of, I think I was about 26 back then, when you go client side, that means everybody's your client when you're in marketing. And so you can never leave your client. And that was very eye-opening. My background in marketing and advertising, however, is really why I decided to go to law school and become a lawyer.
That's awesome. I don't know why, because obviously, like, you're not this old, but when I was like 18 and in college and not going to any of my classes, because that's the type of person that I was watching a lot of Mad Men. And so I thought, because, that's how I think. I like to do advertising. I'm obviously in marketing now. I was like, oh, I could be like Don Draper. Like, it's just smoke cigarettes in my office and come up with like genius ads for tobacco agencies. And those jobs, don't exist and shouldn't exist. For a lot of reasons, very obvious to a lot of people. I don't know if you've seen Mad Men, have you?
I've seen a couple of the episodes, and actually it's on my list. I think I'm going to start watching because everybody says I'm going to love it. I'm not so sure. I've seen a couple of the episodes. They remind me more of what I think the insurance business is right now still, because people do go do martini lunches in advertising. It really isn't like it is in Mad Men.
Yeah. I don't know why. I guess because I was like a college kid and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool if I could just like drink all day and smoke cigarettes in my office. And now I don't do either of those things anymore. But I just imagine that that's not at all what it's like to be in advertising now that like I'm the in-house guy here. So it's not like that at all. I don't know why. That just comes to my mind that I'm like, oh, that's probably such a cool job. And you're like, no, it's not.
Well, when you're one of the creative people, meaning you are the creative director, so you're either the art director or the writer, there's some of that. I mean, you're writing the commercials. So I worked on some really healthy stuff, Kellogg's Pop-Tarts and Fruit Loops. And, I met the person that actually created the Toucan Sam and also Tony the Tiger. And so that part of being in advertising and going on shoots. So I got to go on and be part of I don't know if you recall, but back in the 90s, we really focused on the Button Fly 501. And I got to go on those shoots with some famous commercials that we did some groundbreaking 2-minute commercials called Pool Boy. And it was really fun to be surrounded by people, cool producers, get involved in helping with the casting and the selection of the casting. So, and as an account executive, you get to get involved all the way from the beginning, doing the research and helping develop the strategy for the commercial. Then you work with the creatives to make sure that the creative team is actually developing something really cool that fits the strategy and the audience. And then you travel with the creative team and you do the introductions to the client, and then the creative team presents, and your job is to help sell it. And then you work with them once they develop the commercial. So back in the 90s, it was a wonderful job to, as an English major, to explore my own creativity, learn a lot about strategy, learn a lot about business and presentation, and mostly learn about how to be client centric and how to talk to a specific target audience. So, for example, when we decided to make wide leg jeans at Levi Strauss and Company, we followed inner city youth. We gave them all video cameras and had them take video diaries. And then we went to their homes and had them explain their closets so that we could figure out what was going to be the next trend that would eventually make its way to mainstream. So Levi Strauss and Company, we were the first mainstream company to offer wide leg jeans to the masses. And that was back in like 97 or 96. So all that is very similar to what lawyers do in terms of understanding who you're talking to, who you're working with, trying to persuade them to think or believe something different than they're currently thinking or believing, and to do something different. It's just that in advertising, you're dealing with, cigarettes, Pop-Tarts, jeans. And in law, you're dealing with ethics, principles, human lives.
I love that comparison so much, specifically because it's relatable to me, because I care a lot about advertising. But I've never thought about like commercial shoots being that sort of enlightening. And it's so cool. And especially like when you're earlier on in your career, when you're learning how to just sort of not control, like orchestrate so many different things and talk to different people and get their feedback. And you're right. It's such a fact finding process. That's what I love about the law specifically, is when I actually wanted to be a lawyer. So it's really cool that I got wrapped up in all this, because I get to talk to lawyers all the time. But I have a
Lucky
friend.
you.
I'm sorry.
I said, lucky you. You get to talk to lawyers all the time. I don't know that
For,
many people would say that. That's so exciting. I mean, most of my
really?
friends are like, stop talking to me like a lawyer.
Oh, I
I
love it.
like me better when I'm not acting like a lawyer.
So it's so funny because I have a friend he's a really good friend of mine. We went to college together. He was in here a couple of weeks ago, and he works for Fried Frank in the city. Big, fancy, bougie firm, whatever. But like I know him as like the dude we went to college together. And he was telling me recently about, I won't even get into the particulars. He was telling me about this case that he took. It was like in the pro bono division, where they legitimately went to like a criminal court and gave some guy who couldn't afford counsel. But this guy could afford counsel. He was pretending to not be able to, so it was a very high profile case. And he was telling me about this procedure that he had gone through in order to try and get this guy out of jail temporarily, due to COVID. And he did all this research, and he cited the judge's own decisions, and he went through and this precedent and that. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And everybody's sitting here listening to it like, boring, like shut up, Corey. It's so you and your dumb lawyer stuff. I don't know. I just find it so interesting, which is why I think that you're right. It is exactly like being a lawyer. It's, you have to go and talk to people on the ground to find out, what is actually, so like, it's like client side, right? You have to find out from the client, like what you're actually going to do. And then you have to do all this research and make sure that it's going to appeal to the morals, the ethics, the actual law. I thought that was a really cool comparison that you made there, and that was not planned at all. So I give you kudos for doing that on the fly. Um,
Well, thank
so
you. I think more lawyers should be thinking about marketing and how they package what they do and about who their target audience is, because lawyers really need to be enabling their clients and serving their service in the way the client wants it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, lots of lawyers make a lot of money and we're needed. And so we have this expertise that other people need. And sometimes I think we forget to put that client service part into the service and actually deliver the news or the advice or the counsel in the way that the client wants it delivered, business language, not 20,000 pages, that kind of stuff. So I'm a big believer in pushing lawyers to think more like marketers.
So this is a really good segue into the next question that I wanted to ask you. And I have to remind myself to shut up sometimes, because we could talk about why attorneys should care more about at least care more about it. You don't even have to really do anything about it, because as long as you're aware of it, you're going to make some changes. But I just want to say that yes, attorneys make a lot of money, and so they don't really care most of the time like how to be organized. One of my favorite things is we had attorney Mike Morse on the podcast. His firm literally makes over like $100 million a year. He's a big name guy, and he was telling me, he's like, I used to, if there was money in the bank and somebody said we need another copier, I would say, how much money's in the bank? And they would say, this amount of money's in the bank. Okay, then we can afford a copier. Go buy a copier. He says, now I know down to a T when I will need a new copier based on how many cases I've taken on, how many more people I'll need to hire, and what day I should go buy that copier, and what my revenue is expected off of that copier. Like how much money I can expect to make due to adding another copier, due to needing it for another few associates, another few lawyers, another few people answering the phone, more mark. I was like, that's incredible. That is such foresight. And you don't have to go that in depth with everything, but like you can know the difference between just having money in the bank and being efficient and being profitable. So,
Well, I think that there are a lot of lawyers that don't actually focus on metrics and data as much as they should. And one of the reasons why I've helped develop and co-create the Digital Legal Exchange, which is a nonprofit, is to help lawyers understand and start to use more data and metrics in order to make better decisions, in order to be more efficient, and in order to help enable the business to serve the business's clients better. So I think that that lawyer sounds like he's a trendsetter, that he's in the data that specifically and knows that much about what's happening in his department or with his team. Although
he's
I would say copiers, well, okay, during COVID, copy centers have hit a boom because people have had to go to copy centers that they can't because they can't go to the office. My hope, though, is over time we can maybe be a little more paperless. And one of our projects in Law Without Walls last year was about the environment. And one of the big problems that the team of lawyers and business professionals and law and business school students came up with was the amount of wasted paper that law firms. Uh, it's off the charts.
That's why I love stuff like Clio and My Case and all that, is because just from that standpoint alone, having digital files is just, it's so much less wasteful, and it makes your life so much easier. But I have to ask you, where I have to go back to question number one. So
Okay.
You had said on an interview in our blog last year that client focus is changing from what services and expertise that lawyers should provide to how they provide those services. So not only the substance that they want, but sort of how the process by which they get there. So why do clients care so much about the how than they used to?
Because how we get things done is the experience that we have. So if a lawyer is only focused on what they provide, not how they provide it, the business people have a bad experience. And so the lawyers that make a difference and the lawyers that they want to work with are the ones that actually meet their needs and provide them a good experience. So for example, if a lawyer has, if a business person has a simple question, they should know who to call and they should have a very quick response, and it should be delivered back to them in the way they want it delivered, whether that's email, text, chat app, a voice, or through a bot. But that's not how most lawyers provide service. And in fact, when you use the word service, they don't know what you're talking about. I've had people say, what are you talking about? What's service transformation? What does that have to do with being a lawyer? And for me, having this background in marketing and advertising and being in client service, I see law as a professional service. And so the world has decided now that lawyers don't get to just deliver it the way they want to. Like if I ask you for advice, number one, I want a one pager. That's the one page business rule everybody learns out of college. And somehow in law school, we train in the opposite. Number two, I want it to sound like the culture of my company. And three, I want it to be readable. I don't want to have to rewrite it so that my business colleagues can understand it. And number four, I want an opinion. None of this, it depends stuff. So I believe that clients have gotten more savvy, and there's so many lawyers. So to differentiate yourself, you can't just be an expert and good at what you do. Are there some lawyers that are so smart and have a real niche, and so people will take their advice even if it gets yelled at them? Yes, but for the average lawyer of today, those skills that you learn in business school are the skills lawyers need in order to be effective professionals.
I have run into this problem myself over the years. Um, and I'll tell you, so obviously we're a call center. We're an answering service, and we answer only for lawyers, only for law firms. So it's sort of a niche, but it's really not as much of a niche as you think, because there's so many different types of firms out there. So we kind of have to like be a little malleable when it comes to a lot of different types of firms. But the way that people consume these days is so much different now than it was back then. So back then I could put out a really cheap ad that just said, my answering service is just for lawyers, therefore it's better. And people would call me and they would say, I agree with you. Let me have it. I'll pay you. Awesome. And now I will talk to people who are like, well, are you bilingual? What are your agents like? What's your training like? What's a typical shift like for them? How long are they there? What are the overnight people? How much do you pay them? When are their breaks? When can I expect your peak call? And so consumers have become a lot more savvy, right? And I have found that the better service that you give them, the more they're willing to forgive your shortcomings, because we're all humans. You know what I mean? Like, a lawyer's going to mess up. You're not going to be perfect 100% of the time. And my people will mess up. You know, we're literally the thing that we do here is we're all human. We answer phones with humans. That's the whole thing. That's the point. But if I'm able to handle that and be honest and provide them with, I'm so sorry that happened. Let's do everything we can to make sure that we rectify this and it never happens again. Those are my best customers. Those are the people that are most satisfied. You know, the people that I'm able to prove that we're really, a team of good people, and we're willing to help, and that's what we're here for. Those become the best customers, not just somebody who's like, hey, you guys are great. I don't even think about it. It's set it and forget it. That's not my best customer. My best customer is somebody who I did have a little screw up, but I was able to fix it by caring about my level of service. You look like you want to respond. I want to hear what you have to say.
Nick, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that being human is the most important thing, and more important than being right. The problem I think that sometimes lawyers have is that our job is to solve problems, and we've been taught to think a certain way, and we test as more risk averse, and that's good because that's part of our job, to protect our clients from risk. So clients today want what I call co-collaboration in real time, together in the moment. I've even had some general counsels say to me, they want their lawyers to show up unprepared. And yeah, which means things like what you just said would happen, where you might make a mistake. You might not know the answer. Clients, that to them, if you're willing to get in the boat with them, work with them real time, shoving the water out, as opposed to wanting to be off in a different room, figuring out how to empty the boat, come to the lawyer and explain the solution. The clients need you there and with them, which means you're going to make some mistakes. And then also you have to say you're sorry. And that's not easy for most people. I mean, you sound like you're really good at that, but saying you're sorry, I think, is one of the hardest skills to learn. And it's because it's admitting that you were wrong, and it requires empathy. So in writing my book, the most depressing thing that I learned was that lawyers, we don't just test low on empathy compared to other professionals. We're really, really low, like just off the charts low. And because I, through Law Without Walls, I'm a big believer in work style, that work style matters, and being aware of your work style and others, because we work with 35, 40 countries. We have people in these teams that are different ages, different cultures, different religions. So you need to be really competent about work styles. And so I have used in Law Without Walls many different work style tests, from DISC to Myers-Briggs to the golden, I don't remember, golden egg, golden goose, whatever. And so I always take them myself. And I've been trying to trick them, because my top 10 skills. Okay, I'm visionary, I'm strategic, I'm a risk taker, unlike other lawyers. Great. But I can't get empathy to be one of my top 10 traits, even when I'm trying to trick the personality test. I don't understand it. Like, am I not empathetic? How could that be? How could it be that I could work with 230 multidisciplinary teams in the last 10 years from a real problem to a solution and do it effectively if empathy is not one of my top 10 traits? So I still haven't figured out the answer to that. I know being aware of what we're lacking helps you be better at something, just awareness. That's true with cognitive bias. But what you're talking about, this naturalness, this way of interacting, and then saying you're sorry, requires a lot of empathy. And if we don't have it, or we're lower on it, that puts us at a disadvantage. So we have to work even harder. And empathy is a key to innovation too, which is yet another hurdle.
So I have an empathy problem. I have like too much empathy, and it sort of bothers me. So I think
Maybe you can give some up.
I wish that I really could, because
Give me some.
I'm like such a people pleaser too, because I want everybody to be happy. I'm like, oh, I'm like too nice. And I've actually, over the past few years, I've had to learn to like rein myself in, that I can't make everybody happy.
Mm-hmm.
That even though I can kind of understand how somebody else might be feeling, that it's not really my fault, and I think one of the things that you were saying is, like, lawyers are taught to think a certain way. So I think that it's not that you're not empathic. It's I think everything else sort of outshines it. Because I've never met a lawyer who's like genuinely a bad person. They're just really so by the book. You know what I mean? It's not like,
Our job is to stop bad things from happening, generally, but that's not it. It's also to enable our clients to do what they need to do. And I think in our effort, knowing that our charge is to stop bad things from happening. And by the way, look, it's true that lawyers and the profession in one country might be different than lawyers and the profession in another country. But across all countries that I've come across, lawyers have a profession, a professional identity, and professional ethics that they sign on to. And when you wear that, because it's socioscience, science shows, and psychological research shows that we kind of wear our identities. So it impacts how we behave. So when we're behaving like a lawyer, we're trying to stop bad things from happening, and we have an ethical calling. And I think that impacts sometimes how we deliver information and what information we deliver.
so what I was going to say is, I think when you have such a strong identity, um, not identity, but like a strong foundation in ethics, I think that you sort of lose empathy, because you're like, well, this is the right way to do things. You know what I mean? And if you're really an ethical person, you kind of almost evolve out of needing empathy, because it's like, I'm already such a strict follower of these ethical and philosophical rules, that you kind of lose that empathy. I could see that happening to me, maybe because I'm not the most ethical person. I don't know. I haven't studied ethics at that level, but I want to get back to what you were saying. So you were talking about how clients want to collaborate more with their attorneys a lot more these days. So what are some of the things that lawyers can do to make their clients feel like they're being included in on the legal process?
So I guess I would say I would turn that around. What can lawyers do so that they're more included in the business process, right? In the product cycle, in the agile sprints that business is making? How can lawyers be at the table earlier? So what happens is that sometimes clients don't want to ask the lawyers right away because they kind of are suspecting that the lawyers are going to, want to analyze it from every which way and come back and be maybe, stop signs as opposed to enablers. And so what happens is they don't get pulled in early enough. And then by the time they are pulled in, they're playing catch up and they can't get an answer really quickly because they haven't been involved the whole time. And then they do seem like they're taking too long and then that they're stop signs. So I think the key is that lawyers need to figure out how to enable business and how to be involved earlier and how to sit with business and work with business from the beginnings of projects. And then if they do that, the business will more naturally be involved in the lawyer's thought process and thinking. Because the other way around, which is how we kind of started with the question, the lawyer will go off and they will analyze everything from every different direction. So by the time they get back to the client with the answer, they're feeling very solid in whatever advice they're going to give. Yet I think the clients would appreciate understanding that thought process, the why, right? So all the great companies start with why. Why are you doing with what you're doing? And if lawyers are not part of the process, they don't know why business is doing stuff. And then business doesn't know why lawyers have come to that conclusion. So I'm a big believer in that need for lawyers, outside lawyers, to be working with their clients, the in-house clients, more collaboratively, and for in-house to be working with their internal business clients more collaboratively. And it's not like the regular collaboration of yesterday. It's proactive collaboration. And Carlos Valdez de Pena has this book called Lessons from Mars. And it's not a law book. And he actually puts it together, this scale of like dissonance all the way up to what you might call proactive co-collaboration. And in his book, he says most people, what we're doing is we're cooperating or in parallel play, like little kids, but that we're not really collaborating. And if we are, it's reactive because we've been asked to, as opposed to proactive. And so that's my calling right now is I'm calling out to all lawyers to try to be more proactive. Insert yourself, make it happen.
As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, I know exactly what Michele is saying, that people are being reactive instead of proactive. And this is one of the things I was just having a conversation about this dichotomy between being proactive and reactive. Because I was just telling you, I listen to a lot of sports podcasts, and I'm a big sports guy. The two guys on my team were talking about football right before this, and the big problem in the NFL right now is that people are getting positive tests for COVID, and they're not isolating, and it's dangerous. Like, all these players could get COVID, and then what do? You have to cancel the season. And the big thing is that this organization, the NFL, has never been a proactive organization. They're always reactive. There's racial protesting. What do? They're like, well, we'll figure it out. There's team holdouts. We'll figure it out. There's COVID. We have no plan in place, but we'll test everybody. And so now here's another reaction to something that could have been prevented if they had been proactive. So I love that you were saying that, and I want to talk about, because being reactive is sort of like, it's always being apologetic, which, yes, people have to learn how to be apologetic, but if you could prevent problems before they happen, obviously that's what we all want to do, right? So what are some ways that firms can be more proactive, like you were saying, in terms of businesses and clients that they're serving?
So don't get me wrong. So don't get me wrong. I think lawyers are really good at prevention and proactively looking out for their clients to prevent risks from occurring or bad things from happening. What I'm talking about is being proactive in terms of collaborating. So there are very simple things to do as a lawyer, especially at a law firm. Reach out more, ask more questions, ask why 5 times before you give your opinion. There's this great tool. It's called the 5 Whys. You can Google or Bing it. I didn't make it up. And it is one of the hardest things to learn how to do. And lawyers really struggle with it because we want to ask what questions and we want to contend, argue, and explore in a different way than just continuing to ask why. And the other reason why people don't like asking why 5 times is because it frustrates the person that's being asked. Because eventually they're like, I don't care why, just do it. It doesn't matter why I need this advice or why, this is broken, fix it. Okay. So you have to persevere. And even though you might be annoying somebody, to get to the real source of the problem. So for me, it's reaching out to your clients more, learning how to ask why. And then I think all lawyers should be taking refreshers, should be joining programs like Law Without Walls in order to focus on honing the skill set and mindset of an innovator. Innovators ask questions, so do lawyers, but they question in a very different way, right? So, and they associate things that might not otherwise be associated. And they have great empathy, because without empathy, you can't solve a problem. If you don't really understand the problem someone's going through, you can't solve it. So my advice to lawyers is to actually refocus on some of the skills that maybe they stopped focusing on. So I have a good, I guess kind of like analogy. When you first become a leader in your 30s, right, where you get a few people that end up reporting to you and it's a new leadership responsibility, you take it super seriously. Or at least I did. And you read books on it and you focus on it. How am I going to be a good supervisor or manager or leader? We could fight that some other day if you think those are all different things, but how am I going to do that? And so you focus on those skills. And as we get older, though, we have more and more people reporting to us, more and more people that we're working with, less time. And so we can get rusty at some of the skills that we used to be good at. And if you look at stats for actual executive education and training and how much is spent and how many hours, it goes way down the older we get. And that's a problem. So that would be my advice. Spend some money on some training.
Yeah. I definitely see the need for that. I'll just put it that way. But one of the things that I listen to is, I don't listen to this. I don't know why I said that. I read organizational behavior studies by this guy, Dr. Travis Bradberry, who basically outlines good leadership, but it's sort of through how to communicate. And so I don't really spend money on training, and I don't think anybody wants to really pay for me to go get trained. I'm sort of just a really nice guy, and I don't really oversee that many people. And by that, I mean I have 2 people under me. But we all get along really well, and so it's not really a problem for me. So I do want to ask you, what sort of trainings should people be going through in order to be better leaders? But also, I know you were saying that innovation, right, and being able to see ahead is really important. So how do the two kind of tie together? How does being a leader and being an innovator tie together, and why is it so important to always be innovating?
Well, being a leader and being an innovator tie together. If you took all the qualities of an inclusive leader from any of those studies by MIT or Harvard or whatever, and you took the qualities of an innovator, they map. An inclusive leader and an innovator have the same qualities: growth mindset, empathy, self-awareness, flexibility, adaptability, curiosity, and also the ability to inspire others. And I think that the only way you can learn those skills is through experiential learning, project-based, and with a team that is multidisciplinary and multicultural. And you don't have to pay for it. There are tons of programs. Law Without Walls is not the only one, where you can volunteer your time to work on a project with people from around the world to help others or whatever, where you can learn and hone and focus on these skills and learn just by watching other people. And constant innovation is important because the world is digitally transforming. I mean, there's been more digital transformation, I'm sure, in the last few months than in the last, years. And Satya Nadella said something like that recently. He said that his company's transferred more in the last 4 months than in the last 10 years or 5 years or something like that. And so we're constantly, everyone is being challenged to innovate and change every day. And in small ways, people like to think innovation means, we're going to create some new shiny toy or some big, new, flying car or something. But that's not what innovation is. Innovation is incremental change that adds value, right? So that's something that we need to be doing on a continual basis. That's something that companies are doing. So lawyers need to be doing it to support their companies in their own digital transformation. So I think the two are tied together. I don't think there's any leader in any position that doesn't need to be innovating. Even you, right, Nick? I mean, you have two people, so you're leading these two people. And as the world changes, you have to innovate how you lead them. COVID probably made you change a little bit for how you lead them. And so I think that, well, life would be really boring if we didn't always have to be innovating and changing.
It would literally be the same checklist of things that we want to do every single day, and there would be no new ideas
Groundhog
whatsoever.
Day.
Oh, well, that's a nightmare of mine. I can't talk about that movie. To me, that and like what's the movie where his whole life is like a scripted? It's with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, where he lives in the movie theater. I mean, in
Yeah,
the
and
movie.
he doesn't know he's the main
Yeah,
character.
yeah,
What
yeah.
is that called again?
I know which one you're talking about because I used to say that, like Jim Carrey, my third child, his life is in the minivan, and one day he's going to wake up and realize his entire life he just lives in the minivan, but he doesn't. We play in the minivan. He naps in the minivan. He has his snack in the minivan because his two olders were doing all these activities, and I was constantly driving around. I always said it was just like that Jim Carrey movie, but I'm spacing on the name of it.
I'm gonna be so embarrassed. It's the Truman Show. That's what
Oh,
it's
it is
called.
the Truman Show.
Truman Show. Oh, I was gonna be so embarrassed if I had to put this episode out and didn't remember the name of that movie. Um, but I want to talk. I want to talk more about Law Without Walls because this is an organization entirely dedicated to changing how business professionals and lawyers partner to solve problems. And I just think everything we're talking about is sort of being more collaborative, being more innovative, being more proactive, right? So tell me about what Law Without Walls does that helps to sort of further that goal and get. I know I'm stuttering. I have a stutter. Whatever. I'm weird. Uh,
We're all
but
weird.
I know I'm so weird. But also tell me, how can I get how can I join? How can I get started? How can I be a part of this?
Okay, so the way Law Without Walls works is that we have sponsoring entities like Spotify, HSBC, White and Case, Paul Hastings, Eversheds, Pins and Masons, law firms. We have law companies that sponsor, like United Lex, and we have big corporate legal departments, as I mentioned. So you name it. And they sponsor, and what they do is they pick 2 to 3 individuals to go on the Law Without Walls journey, which is identifying a real problem that lawyers are facing. It could be a business of law problem or a social justice problem, and over the course of a period of time work together on a team with law and business school students and law and business, other legal professionals and business professionals, solve that problem. So what we do is we put lawyers and their clients together on the team. So for example, Horacio Gutierrez, Spotify, he sponsors teams every year. And what he does is he cherry picks people from the legal department that he wants from different countries to work and collaborate better, and a business person, somebody from within Spotify that he wants the legal department to work better with and for. And he puts them on the team, and together they figure out a challenge that they want to solve for Spotify. Could be in related to legal ops, it could be related to process, it could be related to a product. And over the course of the LWOW journey, they work together with this team of students. They lead them so that they can get to identify the problem, we spend way more time on the problem than the solution. You know, like Albert Einstein, if I had an hour, I'd spend 55 minutes on the problem, 5 minutes on the solution. And so in the process of a project-based multidisciplinary team exploration, those people hone all those skills that we were talking about before, and they learn how to collaborate better. And then they bring that way of collaborating back to the sponsoring institution. So back to the law firm, and then back to the corporate legal department, or back to the law company. And over time, that spreads, that new way of collaborating and working. And when you go on a journey like that, where you're leading law and business school students from different countries from around the world, and you're trying to help them understand the problem that your corporation's facing and get them to help you solve it and put a business plan together, you get really close, you bond, and you learn the ways of working. And so then collaboration becomes natural instead of unnatural. It's easy to pick up the phone later or do a Zoom because you already work together and you know how to work together. How do you get
I
involved? Email us. We take volunteers. We also, if you want to sponsor a team, we're open to that.
I'm gonna have to talk to you more about that because I didn't even know how much I love that until you just explained it to me. And one of my big things here in my organization is I used to. I'm a young person, and I started here when I was really young. I've been here a little over 6 years, I think, and so I've gradually gotten a larger and larger role here. And as I keep taking on more responsibility, I've noticed that there was a disconnect between my department, the marketing department, and the sales department. And it's one of those things where we just weren't collaborating at all. It's the marketing department is go get leads, and the sales department is go sign up these leads. Go sign them up for our service. And in order to sort of become more efficient, we had to, break down the wall. We had to get together.
It's called Law Without Walls.
I know I figured that out because I was like, oh, Law Without Walls, like it sounds cool, nonprofit, whatever. But I so get it now because there is a divide between a lot of different departments, especially between law and business, which is why I find your solution so cool. But it's relatable to me because we got in a room and I said, what can I be doing better for you? What do you need from me in order to make your life easier? Oh, I need you to gather different information from these people. I need more educational stuff that I can show them. I need you to make it clearer on the website that our free trial is this. I need you to let people know that we do this instead of this and that our team is here 24/7. And I was like, wow, that was super helpful. And then we spun it around and I said, now, can I tell you some of the stuff that I need you to do for me so that I can do a better job? I need you to tell me how this person heard about us, what they like about our service specifically that they didn't like about the one that they had prior. Can you get on a phone call, the three of us, and talk about all this stuff so that we can publish a case study on it and let other people know that this is the difference. And once you
That's
break
what
down
we
that,
do in Alma. That's exactly what we do. And there's always two sides to every story.
mm-hmm,
And that's what, in marketing, like for Apple Jacks, there's mom, and I'm sorry that I'm not being gender specific, but mom was the target audience. And then it was 12 to 14-year-old teenagers. And so there's two audiences you're dealing with, and same there, you, marketing and sales, and you have to each understand the other perspective in order to create a solution that would work for both.
and it's funny because, like you said, there's two sides to every story, right? And from our perspective, me and my marketing guys, we were like, well, they're just money hungry sales guys, and they told these people to, hang up, have a nice day. And they probably are like, well, these marketing guys are lazy. They just sit at the
Yeah.
computer all day and they don't care that the leads aren't any good and that the info isn't any good. And once we got together, we were like, oh, you do really care about this. Oh, you really do care about this. And this is so cool how this ties into everything we've been talking about, which is when everyone in the organization, wow, understands the why, it becomes so much easier to have common goals. So for us, I remember this as clear as day, because like I said, I've taken on more and more responsibility here. And so one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is there was a guy who worked here, no longer works with us, but he's brilliant guy. He went to school for marketing, and he was a manager here. I don't remember exactly what he did. But one of the things was, he's like, we need a mission statement. We need like a real mission statement for this company. And I was like, okay. And so you're looking for like the why we do what we do. And he's like, yeah, because we want to pitch that. That's what people really care about. And I was like, okay, that's really smart. And so we did a lot of research. I looked up like Apple's mission statement and Amazon's mission statement, like the big heavy hitters of people who are able to sell things that they probably shouldn't be able to sell, you know? And when we boil it down, because we were like, oh, well, what do we care about? We want to help lawyers make more money. Okay, but it's not really that important. We don't really just care about helping lawyers make more money. Why do we do what we do? And we got to, we want to help make sure that anytime a client needs help, that they can talk to an attorney, no matter what. And so what we're really doing is we're helping to foster real human to human connection. And once we came up with that, and once we were like, wow, that's really what we do, not only was it so helpful to get everybody on the same page, but it was so inspiring. We were like, that's
Yeah.
what we do. That is awesome. And it made me feel so proud of myself and my team and this whole organization. And it felt good to know that that's really what we do at the end of the day. So I think that your whole concept, especially for huge companies like Spotify, I'm sure that some people go and work for Spotify and they're like, yeah, I work for the behemoth of the streaming, the giant of the streaming industry. But once you get to the why, I'm sure it's something really cool, like helping to get artists and music connected throughout the world. But regardless, like I was so inspired by that. And so I'm so inspired by the possibility of what you guys could do for everyday businesses.
Well, and Spotify's why is really cool. You should look it up. And I think lawyers get left out of that. And the really good companies and the really good leaders like Horacio make sure the lawyers understand that that's their why too. You don't have a different why because you're lawyers. Today, where I was on a call with the Digital Legal Exchange, a bunch of the faculty advisors, and I can't recall who said it, but there's something kind of even ironic about why are we calling legal that's inside a corporation in-house, the in-house legal department? Like already you don't say, well, we have the in-house marketing department or the in-house HR department. And so already you separate them as other. And it's important not to do that. It's important for everybody to know the company's why and everybody be in charge of enabling that why. And gone are the days that lawyers can just be risk, people that help prevent risk or even just save money. They have to be revenue generators. And the only way they're going to do that is if they're helping with whatever the why is for the company. I would take it to a granular level in our teams and in every team for everyone out there. Next committee you're on, each committee needs to state its why. What lawyers, we often just skip the teaming exercise. Teaming exercises work. You take first 15 minutes of the first day of a project that you've been put on with a team and decide together your why. Because if you're not all on the same why, you're not going to get where you need to go. And not everyone's going to be signing in and be accountable, and you won't get results. So stating the why, even in small teams on a group project, is so important and helpful to teaming dynamics and to success. You know what you're going for.
I have absolutely loved talking to you
Same.
because you, on a professional level, help people to get to this level of cooperation and just being on a team that really, even if it's not super successful, it's moving in the right direction. And I think the best teams in the world all have a common goal. And so if people don't know the why, and they're all like, I'm here to do this, and somebody else says, I'm here to do this, and I'm here to do this, you're not moving in one direction. People are pulling different ways, and it makes it harder to move towards the goal. And this was just such a cool conversation, how we started at one place and went to another, and then we ended up at the why, and it all tied in. And so I want to thank you so much for just agreeing to be on the show, B, for actually doing it, and for such a wonderful, lovely conversation.
It was great. I really enjoyed talking to you, Nick. I feel like I could just keep talking for hours with you. what a great host you are.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we'd love to have you on a team. We're always looking for energetic business professionals with different levels of expertise that aren't lawyers to work with our teams. So
We are going to have to talk more about that. But so on that note, I do want to, if you could give me and everybody listening, how to get in touch with you, how to get started with stuff like that. Where can they, where can we get more of Michele, right? So like, where do I go online? Where do I go on social media? Give me a quick rundown of how I get in touch with you and everywhere you are.
So for Law Without Walls, you can go to lawwithoutwalls.org or lwow.org, and you can reach me at md@law.miami.edu. For me, you can go to my website, movelaw.com, moving lawyers forward. Because I also often work with companies. For years, I worked with Microsoft doing a very similar program like Law Without Walls, but internally for the corporate and legal affairs department. So if you're interested in any of that, check out my Move Law website. And thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciated this time, this
Thank
opportunity.
you. I appreciate your time more than you appreciate mine. For everybody who is watching this on YouTube, the links to everything Michele just discussed will be below. Anybody on all of the streaming services should be in the description, or please copy that down. Go visit all Michele's stuff. I can't thank you enough. This was so awesome talking to you, and I will definitely be talking more in the future.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Michele.